G'day guys, and welcome back to another One Piece deck profile. Today we're going to be looking at old mate Kyros. I'm not exactly sure how I'm pronouncing the name there, but the second of the three new leaders coming out of EB01 that we are taking a look at the channel. Let's just get a closer look at this beautiful alternate art. So Kyros is a black and yellow leader, 5,000 power starts with 4 life. The effect there is activate main once per turn. You may turn one card from the top of your life face up, KO one of your opponent's characters at the cost of 0. So black, we know, loves to play around with cost reduction, so that effect can come quite often throughout the games. There's a few yellow cards that help you turn cards face down or pick cards up from your life, which help us utilize that effect over and over again. And the main kind of thing you do want to focus on in these builds is more of that cost reduction that black comes with, because you most of the time you always have access to KOing with your leader's ability. Now this deck is pretty good at controlling the board, not as good as like Sakazuki, and not quite as good as building a board presence as Gecko Moria, but does have a fairly decent matchup into things like red purple law. Things like Whitebeard can have a decent matchup into Gecko Moria. Probably the hardest one out of the meta leaders is Sakazuki for Kyros. And generally boards that can go really wide really quickly, Kyros doesn't really struggle with there as well. But we've got plenty of options to try and play around some of those things there. And typically you do want to go second with this deck here. But otherwise, if you're going against a meta deck that does like to go first, you just want to throw them off their curve as much as you can as well. First of all, we're going to talk about some cards that help us to reactivate our leader's ability. So if our opponent doesn't swing into us, which is usually what we're okay with, especially the first couple of turns, just so we can reuse our leader's ability, there's some cards that help us to turn our life face down or to pick up that card at the top of the life. So first of all, we're going to look at 4 copies of the Sanji, which is 2 cost, 3,000 body, 2,000 counter as well. We run a fair few of these in the deck. The effect is Don times 2 when attacking. You may add 1 card from the top or bottom of your life cards to your hand, and then you can replace it with 1 card from the top of your deck. So it's basically a fancy way to draw one, but what really works with this deck is you're drawing that face-up life card, which allows you to then use your leader's ability again, which is fantastic. Sanji is a really good card to see on turn 1 if you're going second, just so you can set up that there. And if you're coming against something that you can't really KO, it's just great to get an extra bit of draw going on there as well. And as we mentioned, it's a 2k counter, so it's never going to be dead in hand. Absolutely fantastic card. Must run 4 of in this build. Next up, we are running a full playset of the brand new Viola. So Viola costs you 2, 0 power, 1000 counter, is a blocker, which is really nice. Then on play, you can choose one of the following. You can either look at all of your opponent's life and place them back in any order, which is actually really good, especially going into the yellow matchup. And the other part of the effect is you can turn all of your life cards face down. So that works really well with your leader's ability there. So either way, when you play Viola out, it's going to be a great card, a blocker, and then you can either reactivate your KOing ability, or you can reorganize your opponent's life, get an idea of what's going to be coming up next for you. The last of the cards that help us with our life manipulation, we're running just 2 copies of Hayori. So Hayori, 2 cost is 0 power, 2000 counter, so great card to have in hand. On play, you can add 1 card from the top or the bottom of your life to your hand, and then you add 1 card from your hand to the top of your life. We don't really have any great triggers that we can activate out of life in this particular build, but this is just a great way to replace that face-up life card. Now, before we go on to the cost reduction and KOing cards that we have in the deck, we'll just talk about our tech card, basically, which is we're running 4 copies of Sabo. Sabo helps us a lot with draw power, helping us to find those pieces that we need, whether it's a cost reduction or a KOing card. Most of the time, it is a cost reduction card that we're looking for. So it costs you 5, 6,000 body, 1000 counter as a blocker on play. Everything can't be KO'd by effects until the start of your next turn, which is actually really good, especially into those decks that love to KO and control. And then the other part of the effect is you can draw 2 cards and then you trash 2 cards from your hand. So Sabo can help you protect some of your cards that you can reuse for cost reduction, which is really good. Helps you keep some of your blockers out as well, depending on the state of the game. You may just need to be able to protect a blocker or 2 to be able to survive another turn to take out the game. All right, next up, we're going to take a look at all the cost reduction that we have available to us. First of all, we're running a full playset of Shirahoshi. So this one is from the starter deck 8. So cost you 4, 0 power, 1000 counter, is a blocker. Then on play, you can give one of your opponent's characters minus a 4 cost during the turn. So it's great on 2 fronts there. So it's a blocker, which is really nice, and that's the cost reduction is in there. We are running things like Rebecca Blocker and Gecko Moria, which help us recycle Shirahoshi as well. So we're not afraid to block quite early on with Shirahoshi, just because we can get that recycle going on. Next up, we're running 3 copies of Kuzan, cost you 4, 5, 1,000 a body. On play, you draw a card, which is fantastic, and then when attacking, you can minus one of your opponent's characters by 4 cost right there. Sticking with the theme of minusing 4 costs, we are running a full playset of Hina, 3 cost, 5,000 body on play, minus something by 4 cost. Once again, can be recycled off your Rebecca blocker and your Gecko Moria. Great one to play out off the Rebecca blocker's effect, which is fantastic, getting multiple minusing effects going on there. Next up, we are running a full playset of one-legged toy soldier. So cost you 2, this is another one of our 2,000 counters. Activate main, you trash this card, give one of your opponent's characters minus 3 cost during the turn. Once again, this one can be recycled off your Gecko Moria. Unfortunately, can't be retrieved with Rebecca, as Rebecca only allows you to get a 3 cost to 7 cost. Another one that's similar values right here, we're running a full playset of Suru, cost you 1, 2k counter, on play, minus something by 2 cost during the turn. And to round off the cards that are purely just cost reduction, we're running a full playset of Ice Age. Cost you 1, you can minus something by 5 cost. This is the only card in the deck that has a trigger, so you can KO one of your opponent's characters with the cost of 3 or less. Does come up quite often, that trigger as well, so not just always used as that cost reduction, but mainly you only want to use the trigger when you know you have plenty of cost reduction in your hand. Otherwise, you just want to add it to your hand so you can KO some things the next turn. Now, initially I was playing a build that didn't have any other kind of removal abilities outside of the leader's ability, but I found sometimes that just put me in too tough a situation. So I've added a few other cards in the deck that help us with some removal. First of all, we're running a full playset of Brook. So this is Brook from EB01, cost you 3, 4,000 body, 1,000 counter, on play and when attacking, which is really great. Brook is really good in this deck. You can give one of your opponent's characters minus 1 cost during the turn, so it does fit in with that cost reduction stuff we were all just talking about then. And then you can KO up to one of your opponent's characters with the cost of 0. So you can get a KO off your leader and you can get a KO for Brook in the same turn, which is absolutely fantastic. And the great thing about it is Brook can KO even if your top life is face up. So if you struggle to find those cards that help you to switch your life face down or add that life to your hand, if your opponent's not attacking because they know your leader's ability there, this is a way we can kind of get around it. And Brook allows you to also get some KOing when you're at no life, which sometimes can happen if your opponent is quite aggressive. Next up, we are running 2 copies of Rob Lucci. So Rob Lucci has been a fairly recent addition in my version of Kyros. So Rob is 4 cost, 6,000 body, no counter, on play, plays 3 cards from your trash at the bottom of your deck in any order, and then you can KO 1 character with a cost of 2 or less and 1 character with a cost of 1 or less. So this is really in there for those decks that like to go wide. And in some world, if you have the perfect hand, you can get Rob Lucci's effect off and you can get Brook's effect off and you can also get your leader's effect off. Very, very rarely that will actually happen, but it's just great to have a few more options in terms of removal. If you don't like the Rob Lucci in there, you can take it out for say like another Kuzan or another Gecko Moria, or even a couple copies of Hayori just to increase your 2k counters in the deck. All right, next up, we're going to talk about cards that help us to recycle a lot of those cards that we've just seen. So we're running a full playset of Rebecca. We've mentioned Rebecca a few times in the profile already. So cost you 4, no power, 1,000 counter. Is a blocker on play. You can add 1 character with cost of 3 to 7 back to your hand from your trash. Has to be black. And then you can play 1 black character with a cost of 3 or less from your hand rested. So you either want to play your Hina out from that, or you want to play your Brook out. So you can get a cost reduction or you can get a KO effect there. So your choice there, which is actually quite nice. So they're the main 2 targets that you want to play out of Rebecca's ability. And the targets you want to add back would be both of those, the Hina or the Brook, or even your Rebecca blocker or your Rob Lucci. We've seen that many times in Sakazuki where we're adding that back and then playing that out to get some double KO. And then last of all, rounding off the deck, we're running 3 copies of Gecko Moria. Cost you 8, 9,000 body, no counter. On play, you can play out a character with a cost of 4 or less and a character with a cost of 2 or less from your trash. 1 is active, 1 is rested. So the reason I'm only running 3 Gecko Morias, I was running 4 for a long time, but I only found myself playing 1 or 2 in pretty much all the matches that I played, whether they were fairly quick ones or slow grindy ones. So I dropped that to include one of the Rob Lucci's there, just for an extra KOing abilities right there. But great ones to play off the Gecko Moria would be your Rob Lucci or your Shirahoshi blocker. You can play out your Rebecca as well, so then you can bring out another card. And usually the cards you want to play off the rest of the smaller ones could either be your cost reductions in your Suru or your Toy Soldier, or can be those cards that help you to fix your life. So the Viola is a really great one because that is an on-play, and same with your Hayori. Both great options to help fix your life so that you can get some KOing abilities going on with your leader. Alright, there is the deck in all its glory. Let us know what you think. Once again, your matchups, you usually have a pretty good matchup into Red Purple Law. I played probably about 10 plus games against Red Purple Law and lost only one of them, just because I didn't see any of my Costruction stuff there. Whitebeard, yeah, I haven't lost against Whitebeard. That seems like probably the easiest matchup out of the more kind of top tier meta kind of contenders there. Your Gecko Mori is definitely a very winnable matchup. Just got to play your cards right, get your sequencing right. Your Sakazuki, look, you can win, but it is more of a struggle. And things like the boards that can go wide fairly easily, like your Green Uta has seen a lot of success. That's probably a big struggle for this deck as well, just because how wide it can go so quickly, and then it develops some big bodies which can be hard to remove. But once again, if you play cards right, if you're reusing those effects there, if you see those Rebeccas, you see those Gecko Mori, so you can recycle your Costruction stuff there, you can put up a fairly decent fight. But we'd love to hear if you guys have played something similar, or what sort of changes you would like to go from this build right here. Just let us know in the comment section down below. Stay tuned for more deck profiles as well. Let us know in the comment section below what you would like to see profiled next. But thank you for checking out the video. Stay beautiful, and we'll see you all in the next one.